Hey guys, Tisha here, and we are back for another Becoming Sister Wives book read along. Before we start, let me say thank you to all of you who have subscribed to me, period. And also to those of you who have subscribed to me recently. I noticed that in a week that my subscription count went up by 40, and that is big, and I am so appreciative of it. I thank you for taking the time to watch me. I want to make sure that I say it at the beginning of the video because not everyone always gets to the end, and it does mean more to me than you know. I think I'm starting to get in that algorithm, and I appreciate it. So, in case you forgot, we're now going to be doing chapter 10, which is about Janelle. This is her view on the family. Let's go. The beauty of living in a polygamous family is that we truly get to embody the principle that it takes a village to raise a child. Our family is that village. While all of our children have benefited greatly from the different personalities of the 5 adults who have raised them, it wasn't always easy establishing the rules and guidelines for child rearing. I'm interested in the fact that she said all 5 because Janelle isn't starting from the beginning of them parenting and all of that. She's starting from the point where Robin has obviously joined the family because she said 5 adults. I once again feel like Janelle is giving more credit to Robin than she deserves, but I'm starting to see that this is kind of what Janelle did back then. When you have 4 adults, now 5, who all grew up differently with different freedoms and different household rules, coming to a consensus about what we should tolerate and what we shouldn't permit wasn't easy. In the beginning, when we were just starting our family and Logan was the only child, there was a great deal of conflict over the rules for how the children would behave in the home. This, to me, is something that you should discuss before you even start a family. No, you're not going to know everything, but there should be certain discussions on if you have children, what would you like to see the approach be? What are our common goals for them? What are things that are no-goes? Like, what is it that there's no way that either of us as parents would tolerate? Like, these to me are things that should have been discussed prior to there actually being the birth of a child. While we did agree on the bigger issues, such as not tolerating it if children are disobedient or disrespectful, it was harder to come to terms about the smaller stuff. Some of the adults did not want Logan to climb on the couches and play with pots and pans in the cupboard. I wouldn't want him to climb on the couches either. Now, the pots and pans, I wouldn't have a problem with it if they weren't my good pots and pans, because I'm a little, all my stuff has to match and I don't want to see dents and all that stuff. Now, we all have those pots that, have been well seasoned, that may be a little discolored and things like that. So he could play with those, but I get it. Climbing on the couch. Being an adventurous child, Logan was eager to do these things. I was a permissive mother and allowed him to climb and crawl where he pleased. I wanted him to explore as much as he could, as long as he wasn't putting himself in harm's way. Some of the adults did not agree. I kind of wish she would say who the adults were, but we know that they like to try to protect one another in these things, so they do a lot of those people or whatever. My question is, do you agree with this or not? Do you think that it's okay to crawl on couches and bookshelves and things of that nature? If you think it is, I'm not judging you, just let me know your thoughts. So there was a great deal of friction those first 2 years or so when Logan was learning to crawl and then walk. Like any parents, we were perhaps a bit too overprotective with the very first baby. Once the other children came along, things began to mellow a bit. My sister wives realized that kids needed to be kids. They would climb and explore, and there wasn't all that much we could do to stop them. I personally disagree. I'm not saying don't explore. but don't climb my bookshelf, because I've seen that happen before. I saw one of my cousins climb up a bookshelf and fall, and it was not good. So be careful with how you're allowing your children to explore. As our family evolved and we created our own households within the family space, each wife became more and more autonomous. We began to raise our own children the way we wanted to, according to the rules and the guidelines we preferred individually. When children visit another mother in that mother's house, they are aware that the different rules are in place. For example, in Mary's house, the children know they cannot roughhouse to the same degree they can in Christine's or mine. One way is not worse than the other, it's just different. The children have learned to respect each mother and act appropriately in her respective households. I do not think that there is anything wrong with that. I do not feel like it's not bad for them to be able to be more rambunctious in other spaces, as long as they do understand what the rules are. But even with the difference in rules between the houses, we still all have come to a consensus on the bigger, more universal issues. For example, we all agree on what constitutes disrespect. If any of the children, mine specifically, or those of my sister wives, are acting in a manner that is rude, harmful, or disobedient, any of the mothers is well within her rights to correct that behavior, usually with a scolding. Now, she's saying this, but we know that some of the mothers, example Christine, had a problem with how some of the mothers, example Mary, disciplined/scolded their children. I feel that the transgression that requires more than a scolding is something for the individual mother and Cody to handle. I will alert my sister wife that I have observed a problem, but then leave it to her to handle as she needs to. The downside for our teens especially is that there is always a parent who could be watching. We joke with the kids that we have eyes and ears everywhere, because often we do. For example, recently I was running errands and observed one of our kids walking on the street quite a distance from home. Because it seems out of the ordinary and because we parents communicate frequently, I knew that this teen was usually supposed to be somewhere else at this time. A quick phone call to my sister wife confirmed that it was okay for this teen to be in this unusual place. But if not, well, then it's accountability time for that child. When the children were younger, it was easier to cross-discipline them. The rules of behavior are a little more black and white when the transgressions are things such as lying or fighting. As the children have become teenagers, I find it's a little more difficult to interfere with the way in which one of my sister wives manages things. There is a much larger gray area these days regarding what constitutes a transgression. The older kids have developed their own personalities, and what one might do to be cheeky, another might do in good fun. One household might have different rules about phones, curfews, television. There are just too many variables at play. We all have strong relationships with our own teens and with each other's teens, but since teens as a whole are more complex, rule and boundary setting is usually left to each particular mom, as she knows her own children best. I think that this benefited them and it also messed them up. Example, we see in one of the other seasons how Leon was complaining because Christine allowed for Aspen to skip school, whereas Mary didn't allow for Leon to do that. And Leon tried to use that as an example, and Mary was like, well, that's Christine, that's not me. And I feel like Mary wasn't wrong in what she said, but I also feel like that can lead for some resentment sometimes when you see your other siblings getting away with things that you can't get away with. Nevertheless, the universal rules apply. None of the adults tolerate blatant disrespect or lying from any of the kids, regardless of age or parentage. So it was okay for the adults to lie, but it was not okay for the parents to lie. Noted. When either of these happen, I feel completely comfortable stepping in and asserting myself. I will also intervene when any of our children ignores his or her own mother's instructions. I have no problem acting as a secondary enforcer so the child knows the mother is to be taken seriously. There are times a particular contrary kid gets the full force of all adults present, ordering him or her to take his or her mother seriously. When this happens, the child knows it's time to shape up. Compared to Cody and my sister wives, I'm a softie. Yes, she is. Because I remember when that whole situation happened with Gabe and Garrison. Gabe and Garrison had a lot of different fights, but this particular one was when they were in the car and somebody was kicking somebody's seat and somebody accidentally hit Truly or something like that. And then the next thing you know, Gabe punched Garrison in the nose and blood was gushing and it was a whole back and forth. And they seemed real like calm and okay with the fact that Gabe punched his brother in the nose to the point where he was gushing blood. She is very soft. She just wanted it to be over with and she didn't want to deal with it. My older children tease me that I never enforce anything I threaten them with. This is mostly true. So her older children have already figured out that Janelle is somewhat a pushover, much like it seems some of the other wives did, which is why they managed to I don't want to say, because Cody used the term bully. Like he said, Mary bullied Janelle. But this is kind of why Mary was able to get away with some of the things that she got away with, because Janelle is a pushover. If you're a pushover with your kids, then you're definitely going to be a pushover with other adults. I feel more comfortable discussing with them what is wrong with their behavior rather than punishing them for it. I have always been non-confrontational person, so this is just my parenting style. If not for my sister wives and husband, my children would probably have run wild. The other adults are much quicker than me to carry out their punishments and rarely let bad behavior slide. I credit the way my children have turned out to the fact that my parenting decisions were backed up by Cody, Christine, and Mary, who also provided a structured environment for them and were not afraid to enforce things. I'll take it a step further and say that a lot of that had to do with Christine and Mary, because we know that the both of them at various times were providing childcare for Janelle's children while Janelle was out working. So not only did they take care of your children, but they did also help raise them and teach them things, because if they had not, they would have all ran over Janelle. Even when we lived under one roof in the big house in Utah, we still managed separate households except for the mortgage. Although we discovered long ago that financial autonomy was important to each of us, we do often pass money back and forth between wives to help cover expenses. We all contribute to the day-to-day stuff like baby shower gifts and wedding gifts. We also contribute to larger family expenses such as the cell phone bill. So, does Mary pay a portion of everybody's bill? Is the bill divided amongst the 5 adults? Do each one of y'all pay a portion? Like, how does that work? Because I really question how the family did things, because I still don't understand why Mary was given the same budget as women who have 5 and 6 kids. But then again, the bird was given a budget too, and she didn't bring anything to the house except her cookie. So, I don't know. I shouldn't have said that. Take that out, y'all. This is not to say that there was an overlap between us while our family was younger. Christine and I especially worked together and helped each other out financially, as well as with meals and errands. When we lived in the big house, Christine and I usually did the bulk of our shopping together. It just made sense. Our kids are the same ages and like to eat the same things. On the days I was working, Christine usually made dinner for both my kids and her own. However, on days that I didn't work, I usually cooked for my kids alone. Even when I put food on the table or stock my fridge, my kids are eager to go scavenge in other mothers' fridges and cupboards. It is a universal truth that someone else's food is always more interesting. I'm reading this chapter and I'm thinking about Mary's, because Mary's chapter was a lot more woe is me. I'm going to try to explain why I made some of the decisions I made. Let me jump ahead of this, because some of the moms in their chapters may talk about how I was rough on their kids and other things like that. And I'm going to talk about how people didn't come to Leon's choir thing and all these other things. Whereas Janelle is sitting here and she's owning areas where she did not bring her strengths, and she's giving credit to her sister wives and her husband to the areas that they picked up, which goes back to her statement about how it takes a village. The kids have always been free to move from house to house. Obviously, in Utah, this was a lot easier than it is now in Las Vegas. These days, there is plenty of walking, driving, and shuttling back and forth. It's a lot of work to keep track of which kids are where, how they got there, how they're getting back, and where they need to be later. Everyone is always on the go. But it's comforting to know that our kids are always being supervised by a parent. There are many evenings, especially on the weekends, when my house is completely quiet because the kids have disappeared to the other houses. Over the summer, my pool was pretty popular with the older kids, while the younger girls always got really excited to have sleepovers at Robin's. They think it's cool to have a couple of new sisters with different toys and different games. During the school year, Christine and Robin's houses seem to be where most of the kids want to hang out, because they are the easiest places for all the siblings to meet up with each other, as well as the other kids in the neighborhood. Certain kids often form attachments with mothers other than their own. Y'all keep in mind that they haven't gotten into their own homes yet. In Vegas, when they're writing this book, they're still living in the rental properties. So that's why Robin's and Christine's were the easiest to get to, because they were the two homes that were closest to each other while they were in those rental properties. Certain kids often form attachments with mothers other than their own. These can be lifetime bonds or simply temporary solutions to something a kid is going through during a particular time in his or her life. Currently, Hunter gravitates towards Christine. This has not changed, with the exception of now it's not just Hunter, but it's Garrison, and it's Gabe, and it's Maddie, and I think at times it's Savannah too. It seems like all of her children, with the exception of Logan, because Logan gravitates towards everybody when he does come around, have gravitated towards Christine. She has her own way of talking to him and can be more helpful to him during this phase than I can. And for this, I am unbelievably grateful. I know that Janelle was really thankful for Christine, because we know that Hunter really struggled with that move to Vegas, that he was depressed, and Hunter was around Christine a lot in the beginning and hanging with Truly. Truly was Hunter's piece, and so was Christine. And seeing Janelle say that just shows, okay, Janelle does see some things, even though Janelle, sometimes acts a little, I don't know. Y'all, I like Janelle, but I gotta be honest, Janelle disappointed me. In reading this book and hearing some of the things that she said in the latest tell-all, I don't know. I'm so glad that my sister wives, as well as Cody, are there with me as we navigate the murky waters of adolescence, especially issues of love and sexuality. For me, the most important lesson to teach my kids is not to get too serious too fast. The adults constantly back me up and emphasize to our children that serious dating is not at all appropriate in high school. If our kids are to date, we prefer them to go on group dates with Madison, Logan, and Hunter. I'm very blunt in discussing the perils of too much intimacy before they are mature enough to handle it. I never tire of telling them that unexpected babies and STDs could mess up their lives if they are not careful, but boy, do they roll their eyes at me when I get on my soapbox. Fortunately, I'm not alone in this. I have 4 other adults who will reinforce our vision of morality and help me make sure that my kids conduct themselves as safely as possible. I wonder how these children receive this message from the 4th wife, the bird, because the bird let it be known to the children that they gave away their purity. Well, no, that she said her purity was taken. I roll to that. Before they were married. So I wonder how they received that coming from the bird. I wonder if they were more receptive of it because they know that the bird wasn't perfect. Even though the bird, I still get mad about that situation because she really made it seem like her kid's father just took it from her when that's not what happened. And there are women who have had that happen to them. And here we have this vulture sitting there and lying to get sympathy, not just from her husband, but from the wives, and then trickle it down to the kids, and not even think about how that may have affected her children that she had with that husband. Sorry for my rant, but I just got upset thinking about it all over again because I cannot believe that she did that. Okay, back to this chapter. Despite the complexity of my relationships with my sister wives, the support network we have is unbeatable. In the ideal world, we would all be able to be together as a family as much as possible. But with so many kids running off in so many directions, this is not always possible. I wish that I could attend more school functions than I'm able to, but we have to come up with a divide and conquer system. While not every mother can attend every event, no child will ever have a recital, game, play, or graduation without a few members of the family present. So, Mary, when you were saying that the family didn't make it to Leon's event, this is Janelle letting you know that your child will always have at least someone there, which I think is fair when you put it that way. Gotta be honest, especially if, you know, Janelle's so busy working. So if I can't make it on game day, I know at least one of my sister wives will be there. This is the beauty of our family, especially now that we are able to live out in the open. We can be there for one another without question and without scrutiny. We can finally be the family we've always dreamed of being. And that is the end of Janelle's chapter. Janelle had a lot less to say than Mary. That ended sooner than I thought. I may need to film another one just so, you know, you guys could have a little bit more content. We'll see, because I put a lot of videos out today. So you guys, let me know your thoughts about Janelle's chapter regarding the family. Do we agree with the things she said? Do we disagree? Do we think it's okay for our children to climb on furniture? Do we think it's not okay? Like, what are your methods? This is a no judgment zone. I've said it before in other videos. One of the things that I love about this channel is that we can agree to disagree without being disrespectful. And you do not have to agree with what I'm saying, because what I'm saying is just my opinion. And there are times when you all say things in the comment section that makes me think, and sometimes makes me even change my viewpoint. And I appreciate it, because that's what this is all about. So until next time.